What's up guys, welcome back to Rush the Wars. On today's video I'm going to show you my secret recipe to paint your Gloomspite Gitz, or if you're a Warhammer veteran like myself, your Night Goblins. And not only that, I am also going to show you how I painted the none other than their famous pets, very dangerous, lots of teeth, don't get close, Squigs. So buckle up brass lickers because it's going to be a wild ride. Night Goblins are my go-to miniatures to paint whenever I'm depressed, too tired, stressed, or anything of the like. Instead of quitting painting miniatures just for the sake of, resting, I double down and I like to do it with miniatures that actually help me decompress. I love painting these small miniatures because they are fast to paint, very fun, and you can always experiment a little bit. And today I'm going to show you my latest recipe. I actually started this channel painting Night Goblins, and I have done many different versions of them. Start priming your miniatures in white. You can do zenithal priming if you prefer that, and it actually helps quite a lot because it will give you a little bit of shading already before laying down any paints. The first part of the miniature we're going to paint is the ropes, and we have a secret here. I have a secret here. The trick is that we're not going to use any black whatsoever. Your mind is going to create the impression that they're painted with black clothes. But there is no black, none. I promise you, there is zero black paint on this miniature beyond, well, basically the rim of the base. Everything else is painted with contrast washes. And the first color, and the most important for that, is going to be this one. Ultramarines blue. So paint the ropes of your Night Goblins with Ultramarines blue. Make sure that you cover the primer quite well, but don't give a too thick coat because we want those transitions between the shading that is going to be obtained by the paint going into the recesses and the highlights that is going to be, well, the trademark from contrast paints because they don't accumulate that much on the high areas. I have fell in love with this particular contrast paint. I've tried many recipes to paint goblin skin and orc skin, and nowadays I have to advocate for Mantis Warriors Green. This color is fantastic. You can get a very nice green skin with just one coat. But if you want to up your game, well, there are a couple of tricks that you should be aware of. But be a little bit patient because I'm gonna show you that later. Right now we're just laying down the base coats for these miniatures, and that includes obviously the skin and some other things that we need to work on before we start doing the detailing that is gonna make them look absolutely fantastic. So be patient, it will pay off. First, we're gonna go into the red details with a little bit of magma drought flame. Straight away from the pot. There we go. I need to be careful so I don't need to highlight this later on. It has an evil eye symbol on the hood right there. Magma drought flame is kind of oranges and it makes a perfect base for the 90s red that I am so fond of. Every now and then I discovered, paints that I bought and I really didn't have a use for them. And then I think, I think this will be a very good base for this or that. If you're painting your Squigs as well, then Magma Drought Flame makes absolute sense as the base color for that red. Now, what details you choose to paint with red in this case is an absolute personal choice. In mine, in particular, I like painting the clubs, the shoes, and some of the hoods as well. Even the old classic Kev Adam Goblins have a lot of character, meaning that there are plenty of details that you can entertain yourself painting. Things such as bad moon symbols, small pouches, and small trinkets are all part of the miniatures. On top of all that, if you're painting Gloomspite Gitz, you will notice that there are plenty of mushrooms on the miniatures. Night Goblins or Gloomspite Gitz love mushrooms because they use them for many things like eating or concocting drinks and brews that will get them hyped for battle. Along with all the other previous details, they just show us opportunities to have fun with the miniatures and paint them with strident colors that will contrast with the rest of the model. The Bad Moon iconography that is so prevalent in the miniatures can be easily painted with contrast paints. Yellow used to be a nightmarish color to paint, but with the new contrast and the shades, it is very easy to tackle. In this case, I'm starting with, well, none other than Bad Moon Yellow, and then I'm going to start shading these areas just to make sure that there is a little bit more of volume and interesting contrast within the yellow. For this I like Iyanden yellow because it has an orangish tint that helps to create that type of volume. I'm going into the recesses and the areas where I think the light might create shadows, and I just paint a little bit of this as a light glaze that is going to create that volume that I'm looking forward to obtain. Sometimes, in order to exaggerate that contrast between shadows and highlights, I use colors that might be a little bit surprising. In this case, I'm using cardboard crimson. I think it makes the yellow quite more attractive. Funnily enough, this paint along with Sigval Burgundy are quite nice also to shade a little bit more on the green areas and also the red areas that we painted before with Magma Flame. Sigval Burgundy is actually a very useful paint. I think it is great to paint things such as the tongue and the gums in the mouths both of the goblins and the squigs. And you can use it also to paint the pimples that these goblins have here and there. If you're using the old Kev Adams goblins, you know they have a small tendency to acne, and Sigval Burgundy on top of a small dot of ice yellow makes them look absolutely fantastic. A simple way to add a little bit of gritty realism to your miniatures is by painting damage to the weapons and armor. Here I'm going to show you how I painted the chinks to the weapon and helmet of this goblin boss. The first step is using Gore Granta Fur. To begin with, we are going to paint the blade area with this color, and then I'm going to add a little bit of damage in the places where I suppose that this weapon will be receiving hits more often than not. The same is applicable to the helmet or any area that you want to paint. Even the armor could receive some of this treatment if I wanted to, but I just decided to do it on both the weapon and the helmet, that's all. Next is painting with a metallic paint, in this case iron breakers. I'm painting in this fashion to create the impression that the blade has been very crudely sharpened. Then all you have to do is paint within those brown stains, leaving the edges in brown. That way it looks like the metal has been chipped, but the paint has been rusted a little bit. All metals are going to receive a similar treatment, which is painting them with iron breakers and then adding glazes on top of them. When I want to do golden metallic paints, well, I have two choices. I either use a golden metallic paint, or as you probably know if you have watched my videos, and if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel right now. But if you know, I used Nazareth yellow to create golden colors on top of silver metallic colors. Of course, Night Goblins are not well known for taking care of their weaponry, so making it look a little bit rusty and overused, it's probably the best choice for painting it. Some of the most useful colors in the contrast range, even for people who don't like contrast paints, are their browns. Basically, diluting your dark browns and painting metallics with them makes them look much more interesting. And on top of that, many other details such as pouches, shafts of weapons, ropes around the waists, and even darkening bones, horns, and teeth can be done with the browns in the contrast range. And speaking of teeth, obviously I have to still tell you how to paint these beautiful creatures. I think painting Squigs red makes a lot of sense because they will contrast a lot against your Night Goblins. To save time, I use my airbrush, but all that I'm going to do here can be achieved easily with brushes. After doing the base coat with Magma Flame and doing some shading with Sigval Burgundy, I start doing the highlights. For this, I focus on the curves of the miniature to create a volumetric highlight that is going to enhance both the shape and the volume of the figure. The first highlight is with Citadel Layer Wild Rider Red, followed next with Nostalgia 94 Bronze Flesh, and a final highlight of AK Interactive Ice Yellow. And Ice Yellow will be used also to paint the claws and the teeth of Squigs, and to create an interesting texture on the lips, because then we're gonna glaze them with blue. Why blue, you might be asking? Well, because the Night Goblins will be dressed in dark blue robes. This will tie in the very red Squigs with the very green Goblins and make them an homogeneous force. To prove my point, just notice how the red details in the Night Goblins and the blue lips in the Squigs actually make a lot of sense when you see them together. It is time to wrap up this video, but I don't want you to leave empty-handed without knowing the secret that I used to paint these Night Goblins in the 90s style as close as possible to those Middlehammer colors. The trick is basically knowing how to highlight those robes and skin and how to glaze them to look absolutely fantastic. And it all comes down to two simple steps. This part is a very important one. You can skip it if you're speed painting, but if you want that Middlehammer look, clean, beautiful highlights, this is very important, but also very easy. We are going to use white paint. It can be white paint, it can actually be an off-white, whatever you prefer. I usually like using ice yellow. We're gonna use this to clean the details that we have covered with our previous coats, and also to paint the areas that we will highlight in places such as the robes and the hats of the miniatures. As an example, look at the miniature on the left. It has no highlights whatsoever, whereas the one on the right has been highlighted in the hat, the robes, and the extra details that it has. After this has been done, I'm going to glaze those areas with different colors to achieve more interesting transitions. After much experimenting, I think that using dark blues is going to give you the most vivid and interesting option for this. I recommend trying paints such as Celestium Blue, Azurman Blue, or Drakenhof Nightshade. The last one is one of my favorite paints and it obtains a very dark, beautiful blue. The highlights that you have done on the hats and all the red areas of the miniatures can always be toned down with Angron Red. And if you don't really like the orangish color that you obtain by using Magma Drought Flame and Angron Red, you can always give it a wash with Sequel Burgundy watered down. And regarding painting the Goblin skin, well, my secret is even more simple than that. I'm gonna use only 3 paints to do this. As I just said, paint the skin with this, highlight with this, and shade with this, and you're going to get very beautiful Goblin skin. If there is such a thing. I don't know. Whatever. Don't listen to me. Not the prime of beauty here. So to summarize, let's make it simple. Start from a zenithal priming white on black. Then paint the skin with Mantis Warriors green. Paint the robes with a dark blue, such as Ultramarines blue or Leviathan blue. Eyes, shoes, clubs and other stuff can be painted now with Magma Drought Flame. Use iron breakers to paint the metallic areas now. Clean stains and highlight areas with ice yellow. And now glaze the different parts of the miniature with these paints. If you never tried it before, you need to start painting Night Goblins now. They are very easy, very fun to paint, and they definitely are one of the funniest factions that you can feel on playing Warhammer or Age of Sigmar. So give them a try, and I promise you, you will not regret it. And remember, if you want more chaos in your life, don't forget to subscribe to the channel over here. You can watch this video next. And of course, my name is Miguel. This has been Rocks the Wash, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Un beso. Adiós.